what's new on the Burlington waterfront. Hey, now it's happening at the waterfront on Lake Champlain. Whatever the weather, there's much to do on the new waterfront, the Burlington waterfront.
Welcome to the program. I'm your host, Mariah Riggs, director of the Main Street Landing Performing Arts Center. Today, I have one of my favorite new neighbors down on the waterfront, the executive director of VTIFF, Steve MacQueen, with me today. Welcome to the program, Steve.
Thanks for having me. It's delightful to be here.
Oh, thank you for coming. So I'm really excited to talk to our audience about VTIFF and your new location down on the waterfront and the new screening room.
Yeah. We should probably mention that it stands for Vermont International Film Festival.
Yes, it does.
That's what VTIFF stands, in case people are acronym challenged.
Yes.
So many acronyms to keep track of this.
But you guys are so much more than a festival now.
We're so much more than a festival, it's
So
true.
much more than a festival now.
Yeah.
So, you know, just as a basic, let's tell our audience a little bit about VTIFF. How did VTIFF start?
It started 40 years ago this year, in 1985, as a peace and justice festival, and it morphed into an same line anti-nuclear vibe in the 80s and early 90s, and then it became more of a film festival, and then I believe it was floundering a bit, and then 15 years ago, maybe, fabulous woman named Orlia Dean took it over and really sort of made it about film, keeping all those other previous themes at heart. You know, we're Vermont and we're a festival, so all these peace and justice is ever prevalent, and the idea of all the social responsibility was very much a part of it still. But she built it out as an organization dedicated to excellence in film and bringing in the best films, and really built the organization to where it is now. And I took it over about a year and a half ago.
And so actually, I kind of want to go back to that because I think that's a really important cornerstone of what makes VTIFF unique as a festival, and sort of the Vermont ingrained quality of VTIFF is the social responsibility component.
Sure.
And so how does that translate to like programming or your intentionality when you're thinking about films?
That is such a good question, and I get asked a lot, how do you pick what you pick? And sometimes it's tough to say, it's more of a feel. But I think in terms of international film, it's, I wouldn't say it's easy, but international filmmakers tend to talk about what's important to them. So those are already socially generated things. There's not a lot of pie-throwing comedies that we get in terms of international market for foreign films, international films. And so, those films rise to the surface, and as your identity is established throughout the years, and you kind of get a sense of what your audience wants to see and who your audience is, and how we can expand together and expand our worldview as well as our artistic view, you get a feel for it.
And that's interesting because part of that social responsibility too is like bringing the world to Vermont, like sort of those experiences, those stories,
Absolutely.
You know, that are from places that might be very different, but the human interest component of the story is so valid that it translates.
Yeah, there's only so many stories, no matter where you go in the world, right? There's like half a dozen. I forget how many Joseph Campbell said there are. There's a small handful of stories that are, you know, the coming of age story and this story, and every culture takes them on, but it also reflects the culture that tells the story. And so absolutely, and I think almost any film can be a learning experience. When these international films, obviously, almost always are. You go to places you've never been, and you see things you've never seen, and you still watch people deal with each other and the way people deal with each other.
And they're just humans.
And they're just humans, always.
And they're just humans, but they're in a very different environment, which kind of takes you out of your comfort zone. And allows you to see things with a different perspective.
Yeah, which is cool. And spurs conversation and curiosity and interest. That's one of the big goals of the art in general, but certainly of our festival.
And it's such an integral part of what VTIFF is able to bring to the community.
Oh, that's good to hear. That's what we're going for.
That's what I always see. And so you know, again, you've had the festival for years, and you guys did make this big move to the new screening room.
We did.
And I think it's kind of interesting to talk a little bit about the fact that March 1st is the screening room's big first anniversary.
Yeah, we made a big shift when we moved offices down to Main Street Landing to Lake Street. And we went from being a place that showed movies once a month and then a big festival in October, and then another smaller festival. A couple of festivals, and then once a month, just showing movies every week. In a screening room's a 34-seat theater. Beautiful chairs, beautiful projection, beautiful sound. It's a lovely space to see a movie. It really is quite fantastic.
Yeah, by the way, if you haven't experienced the chairs at the VTIFF screening room, it's really one of the best viewing experiences in the state.
Yeah, I think so.
So you should definitely check it out.
And we love the programming. It's everything, anything, all the time. So we've been able to cover the whole run of film history all around the world, traverse time and space to tell these stories, old and new, and it's just been really great. And it's caught on with a lot of people. We saw at a lot of these things. They're definitely full. We had a David Lynch film, Wild at Heart, actually programmed before he died. And then he died between when we screened, obviously, that sold out.
So you're clairvoyant?
I had nothing to do with it.
It is a great film.
Wild Heart's a very fun film. So we're able to be nimble with this theater in a way we aren't with the monthlies, and we just showed a bunch of David Lynch movies the next weekend, 3 of them, and they all sold out. People were interested in that story, and I think it shows that there's a hunger in Burlington, in the greater community too, but particularly in Burlington, for cinema and for cinema that tells interesting stories, because we lost our movie theater, and so
we did.
So VTIFF kind of is the movie theater, one of them. There's a couple of people answering the call, and we're doing what we can to fill that gap and expand and show as many great movies as we can.
Which is really important.
Yeah, I think so.
And it's a great experience for anyone. So. I kind of wanted to segue into that, because you did do 3 David Lynch films, but I heard you're doing a couple more.
I think so. We don't have them actually planned yet for March, but they were such a resounding success, and everybody loved them, and several people said, well, you're going to keep going, right? Because we want to see more. And so I don't see why we wouldn't. I think he made 10 films, and we've shown 4 of them, so that means 2 more weekends of 3 should work. And then we'll have done the complete oeuvre, including Inland Empire, which is the one I don't like, but also I'm happy to show it.
It's an interesting.
But yeah, I think we'll stick with the Lynch, and of course we'll go out of bounds as well. Like this weekend coming up, we have, I think, which is kind of fascinating, is 3 documentaries from all over the world. There's a Russian documentary called Queendom, about this incredibly brave street artist, LGBTQ street artist in Moscow, who dresses in these outrageous costumes, like sort of share with a touch of BDSM, kind of like barbed wire too, and very aggressive, amazing things, and then does these street performances in Moscow where they are totally illegal. That's an illegal thing to do.
Really?
So it's really that's an amazing film, profile of this person. And we're doing Union, about the attempt to unionize an Amazon warehouse in New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
Which is really hard to do.
Now, is that fictional or is that a documentary?
These are all documentaries.
Okay.
These are my favorite documentaries from 2024. And then the third one is called From Ground Zero, and it's 22 Palestinian filmmakers made short films about their life under the current siege.
Wow.
And that's a very powerful, as you can imagine, very powerful film.
It's probably pretty telling, too, because that's a region of the world that we don't have a lot of information from.
Yes, that's right. And so it's quite a film.
And actually, a lot of those films kind of come from communities that are, very insulated from sort of the Western influence and the Western gaze. So they're kind of coming out of places that we don't necessarily have a lot of experience in being able to go into.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons it's great to be at a film festival these days, is because the ease is probably the wrong word. The access, that's a better word. The access to ways to make a film has never been greater. You make films on your phone, you can film anything. And so you can make these movies and then people see them. It used to be such a cumbersome, expensive process, and who knows how the hierarchy of who picked whose stories to tell. There's still a lot of that going on, but people can make films, and from all around the world, places that didn't have access to these resources, now you're seeing films come from them. And we see them at the festival every year, and they're amazing films coming out of Africa from countries that don't have a history of cinema.
Yeah.
Telling incredibly compelling stories in these films.
Well, because the iPhone really has had this incredible revolutionary effect on who can craft actual functional, commercial films to a wider audience.
Yeah, Soderbergh makes phones on his cell phone all the time.
It's incredible. Now they have these handheld things for like cameras,
right.
I for our viewers who aren't aware of it, back in the day, you used to have to go out with a 16 or a 35 millimeter film. You had to make sure the color temperature was right, that you had the right film stock for the environment you were filming in.
And sound was murder. It still is, even with the iPhone. Sound is still the killer, I think. But it was such a cumbersome process, but now you really don't. It's much easier to make a film now.
Yeah,
it's been democratized.
You had to get it. You had to get it developed. And another little weird kind of crazy thing is back in the day they used to glue the negative back together,
right?
Which was a very special process. And there were actually people that's all they did was glue the negative back together. And almost everyone has an editing software program on their phone.
That's right. They come with them.
It's like the universality of being able to make film is pretty awesome.
It's given the ability for people to tell stories in film that didn't have that ability before. Since that's been great for international film. We're seeing so many amazing films from places that we didn't hear voices from before, which is great.
Because there was no capacity.
Right. And there was also no distribution, and it was all very, film-based, and this makes it much easier. People often do for the film festival. People, email me films. It's very amazing. You talk to filmmakers themselves in various places, or really small distributors, and you get connected with this incredible wealth of really well-made films too. The other thing I think that used to be, if you didn't have good equipment, it showed in the product, right? I mean, it certainly just shows. It
looked amateur.
Yeah, it could. It can have an energy, but there was just a look and now I think that's also been it's much easier to get a good-looking film. I don't want to say professional-looking because that sounds elitist.
But a film that has the craft look about it.
Or a film whose look doesn't detract from its message at all.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that happens. You see really well-made, good-looking films all the time now. And that's exciting.
That is really exciting. And so, for our audience too, I mean, that's kind of an interesting point. So how, maybe just a little back end, how do you select films and how do people find international films?
Well, how do we select films? It's a good question. So we have, for the screening room, we have a couple of things we do where we bring the community in to curate, and people come in and pick their own film, and then we give them the stage and they talk about it.
Did you guys hear that? Because if you do want to curate a film or you're interested in film, please talk to Steve.
Do that. Yeah. So we had 5 comedians come in and show us things that they thought were funny from the comedy club, and we've had Ray Vega did a series of jazz films with jazz soundtracks that were really great, and so that's been very fun. And other than that, I do it. Yeah. Which is great fun for me.
Yeah.
So I bring those films in. For our festivals, the big festival in October, the Vermont International Film Festival, we have a committee, 10, 12 people on it, and we watch hundreds of movies, and we boil it down to the 50-ish that we show.
And I think that's another good point for our viewers, too, is that the International Film Festival isn't necessarily just films you're given by a distributor, or there's a booking agent who's like, oh, you need to show you're the international, these would be great things. There's a committee of people at VTIFF who are dedicatedly watching.
Oh, of course.
Countless films, and then well,
you can count to 100.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm making it sound grandiose, right? Countless films, and they're watching them and then curating them for our audience, and ensuring that really the best films get through to the festival.
That's the hope. We have some spirited conversations in the programming committee. It's very fun. It's over a course of months because it takes a long time to watch that many movies. Yep. And come to some type of consensus. And then in the end, to be fair, at the end, I tweak and shape it at the end. So I do have that
molded into
little editorial power. But the committee obviously reaches the consensus over what are the best films.
Do you usually pick a theme for the festival?
I don't pick a theme because I think that's limiting to the type of films you'll receive, and I think it puts a predetermined lens on how you're watching films. If you're going to watch a film to see if there's a thing in it that fits your theme, then you're not getting just the film on its own terms. So I like to watch films on their own terms, and then what I have found is that once you pick the best films, themes will announce themselves.
Yeah.
We're doing the Made Here Film Festival right now, and we're watching these films all over the Made Here Film Festival is regional. We do it in April, late April, and it's all films from New England and Quebec. And so A lot of shorts. We're watching a lot of them, and a theme that I'm seeing a lot, especially with younger filmmakers, is this theme of isolation and loneliness. Like that keeps coming up when I watch it, and some really good films, some really powerful films.
And the stats kind of support that.
So it wouldn't surprise me if that becomes a theme, but I wouldn't want to at the start say this year it's going to be about loneliness or I don't know.
Existential loneliness.
I like to let the films and the artists, the best ones come through, and then the theme is generally suggested by the art itself.
And I really appreciate that, because I think as a festival, you're sorting through the films of an entire year. And so the festival in of itself is a reflection of the film of that year. And so by limiting it, you're not necessarily getting those peaks of the film quality throughout the whole year and being able to really showcase that.
Yeah, I think it's the best way to do it. I mean, that's something that I know Orly used to hammer on it. That was we pick the best films. It's about excellence in film.
Yep.
So you would never pick the less excellent film because it fit a coming of age theme or something, right? You need to do the best films, and I think that's something that we stick with.
And I think that's also an important part of VTIFF.
As objective as we are, I also want to say that we are a group of people, and so it is objective, and so it's our reflection on the films of the year. When we say the best, I want to make sure that I'm not saying the best. I'm saying that this is the best that this group has come up and decided that these are the films that we will show.
And it's
that's
democracy.
Objective.
It's a democracy,
but it's always objective too. People love movies and people hate movies. We just showed Blue Velvet a couple weeks ago from David Lynch.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a seminal, formative movie of my life. I saw it when I was 21, and it really was like a dividing line. Like there was movies before that and after that, and I think you even knew that at the time. But we watched it, and when it was done, I loved it as much as the first time I saw it. It was just so great. And I stood up, and the guy next to me, I said, "What'd you think?" And he said, "I didn't like it then, and I don't like it now."
Then why did he come?
He thought it might have improved with age. But I was like, well, that just shows you movies, doesn't it? Because I thought that was a masterpiece.
But that's also, I mean, in some ways, that's also reflective of great art. If people don't have a strong visceral reaction around the art, then maybe the art isn't doing what it needs to do.
That's one way. That's what he's going for.
Oh, well, and we're talking about David Lynch, too.
That's the artist's intention, for sure,
And, you want people to be thinking about it like a week later. Not just some sort of commercial craft event that's a fun popcorn thing that you go to and you watch it and you leave and you don't remember it 20 minutes later.
Right, but I've had strong visceral reactions to movies I hate. That's a visceral reaction, too.
Okay. Am I allowed to ask you a movie you don't like?
No, I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, let's not get into that.
Let's keep it positive.
Let's keep it positive. So we talked about some of the upcoming screenings. Do you guys have any? So the Made Here Film Showcase. Can you fill us in? Where is it this year?
Oh, it's the coolest spot. It's in the Burlington Beer Company back room, which I know. I haven't made it sound cool yet, but I'm getting there. And it's called the Lumiere Room, and it's actually a film festival. And the Lumiere brothers are like the early pioneers on a mega status. Like they're hugely influential in the development of film as a medium in the world. You can look them up. And I forget their first names, Gustav and some. They came to Burlington and built a factory in 1905, I think, to create, bulbs for their machines that they were building. And so that's and that's the Burlington Beer Company building, and that's the Lumiere Room because that was the Lumiere factory. It's windowless, except at the top it's got windows all facing in one direction, and there was a reason why they only faced that one direction.
Yeah, so they could use it as the key light, maybe.
I forget, but that's the people who built the building, and for years that was the history. And so for years I was kind of forgotten, and then it kind of came back up. And when Burlington Beer did the restaurant, they created this room in the back. It's huge. And we thought, what a great place to have a festival.
That's so wonderful because it ties into really the basic history.
The basic history.
I mean, that was back during Edison's Black Mariah phase, which was one of the original black box theatrical spaces.
Yeah, so you can't overstate their importance to the process.
You can't.
And for some reason, they came over from France and built a factory in it's weird. It's already weird in Burlington, and that's where we have our festival.
Good, that's a claim to fame for Burlington.
And we have, I think we show 60 films and all kinds of filmmakers from all over the region, and most of them come with their films as well, which is always great, and that gives them a chance to interact. It's a support system for young filmmakers to get their films shown and seen by an audience, which is so great. That's why it's one of the reasons people make art.
Yes.
And to meet other filmmakers and just to be reminded that it's not New York or LA. There's a scene here. There are filmmakers and there's creative energy and there's artistry happening, and to connect with other people doing that. I love that festival. That's only in its 4th year in person. It came out of COVID, and that's something else that Orly did. It used to be called the Vermont Showcase as part of the festival, but it was pulled out to become its own thing because it was starting to eat up a lot of the festival. We were cutting too many things out. We're like, this should be its own thing.
Yeah, I remember the series in the afternoon.
It really has benefited, and I love that. I love this festival.
And that's really important for our film community because
we're trying to make it useful.
Yeah, it gives a starting kind of launching point for some of our young filmmakers. And there really has been, and I'm sure you can speak to this too, there's been a huge resurgence in filmmaking in Vermont. I mean, I've just noticed it being here for 15 years. Then like the last 5 to 6 years, we have a lot more filmmakers actually creating films in the state of Vermont than we did a decade ago.
Okay. I don't have numbers on that, but I'll believe you.
I don't have numbers about it either. I just feel like I get approached. Okay. I feel it. We have the Vermont Production Collective, and there's a lot of different groups, grassroots groups that are growing up.
There's no shortage of Vermont filmmakers, that's for sure.
Which is amazing.
That's great.
I mean, it's a great place for it. I mean, we're definitely an iconic place for writers. But and we do have some interesting film icons who do live in the state. We do. And but another part of what I really love about what VTIFF does, and if you haven't been to a VTIFF experience, especially like Made Here, is the ability to actually discuss the art that you've just seen with the person who created it.
Yeah, it's important. I agree. That's like a great bonus, right? To actually see somebody and hear them talk about how they made it and the origins of their intent and all that. I also think that one of the major things about VTIFF that I do love is the idea that you gather people to watch things in a group, and then you talk about it afterwards. And to me, that is the thing. That is the reason that streaming will never totally overtake watching films in a group. Because I'll tell you, we had this experience at Main Street Landing on the 3rd floor. We showed Honora, and it was sold out, packed to the rafters, and just the vibe in that room was so great. And it was just, you could just feel the energy. People were excited to see this film. There was so much buzz about the film, and then there was crowded in there, and then the movie is really good. And it just, there was a couple of times where the audience, somebody actually involuntarily said something that was really great. And it was, we were kind of reminded. And then like the next night, we had a screening room with like 32 people, and we showed Wild at Heart. And it was sold out, and it was just another one. We just watched this film, and you could really feel people were so delighted to watch a film, and then when it was done, especially like those films, just talk about it. The person next to you, like, well, what was that? What was that?
But there's also that shared collective experience.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
for sure.
in the audience where, you might not have thought, you thought it was funny, but it wasn't laughed out loud funny, but then you hear the people around you laughing, and then next thing you know, you're laughing because...
There have even been studies on the fact that if you think something is funny when you're watching it alone, you don't laugh. But if you watch it in a group, you laugh. Yeah. And that's laughter is real. And
it gets out there.
Yeah, it's fun. So
and
providing that audience experience is a huge part of what we do.
And also sometimes processing, and that's another part of it, is processing the film with others who have experienced that shared experience. I mean, I've been doing my series now for 14 years, and I always end up talking to people after films, and it's really wonderful to hear how the movie might have touched somebody in a completely different way than how you take it, but it allows you to appreciate the film in a different way.
Oh, yeah. That's one reason why we've been doing these things in the screening room where people come and talk about the film, a film that means something to them, and then they show it. We had several members from the burlesque community do what a series it was called Queer Coming Out Stories, and it was 3 movies. 3 different artists showed movies they were raised in different places, but they saw a movie that they connected to why they felt different, that they had been afraid to talk about, and they'd been kind of like, and they saw these movies like But I'm a Cheerleader was one of them. Paris is Burning was one of these movies where they're like, oh my God, there are people and places where you can actually be yourself, and that's always amazing. To have somebody explain their own personal experience and then watch the movie, it does put a whole different lens on it.
Yeah, and the movie actually explains some of the inclusivity that they're looking for. And so, that's another thing.
It shows them that world exists. Like that's what
You're not alone.
Richard, who showed us Paris is Burning, was like he had no idea. He was in a small town in a religious family, and like when he saw Paris is Burning, there's a place.
Yeah.
Like Oz. Right?
Yeah, right.
Except it's real. And so it was.
It's the place I made up in my head.
And then to watch that film and know that when it came out and people were watching, they were like, that was the kind of connection it was having with people. It improves the experience.
Yeah, and the fact that that's another thing is that's really important about great good art is that it can change people's lives. The experience of it can redirect. Oh, yeah. It can change your perspective. Sure. It can open new doors. It's one of those things that can be, so life transforming if it's done well. And I think film as a medium leads itself to that, particularly because it's a way, the visualization of story and language and narrative really translates well to how human beings experience the world. It touches on all those senses.
I don't disagree. I love film. I think all arts can do that. I definitely
of course.
agree.
Of course. But I think that's sort of film's kind of unique thing about it is it's able to have like the arc of a novel, but still affect you through visual language in the way that a visual art can, which is a really unique sweet spot.
Yeah. And it's new-ish. Right?
New is relative, right?
Newish, yeah.
Ask the Lumiere brothers.
It's older than us, but it's newish in the scope of things.
In the scope of things, it really is. The moving picture.
The moving picture.
The moving picture. So, so I also wanted to quickly touch base. VTIFF, we have the Made Here, and the dates for Made Here are coming up. It's in March, right? April. Okay.
25 through 28, I'm going to say.
Okay, we'll check you on.
I feel pretty good about it.
Okay, yeah. So late April, perfect time. Everybody's kind of coming out of that.
Thursday through Sunday, late April.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a good spot. Good place to be. It's a bar, a restaurant.
Time of rebirth.
A lot of films.
Rejuvenation.
And meeting filmmakers and talking to filmmakers. It's one of my favorite things that we do at VTIFF for sure.
And it's such a unique experience and really a benefit to the entire Burlington community.
Well, what are we of use to the film community in the whole region, New England and Quebec?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really fascinating to me to see the Quebec films that come down and to hear Quebecois filmmakers talk about their process, which is totally different than U.S. filmmakers, just because of where the money comes from and how they're put together and how they're made. It's an entirely different process. In Quebec, you apply for the money, and if you get the money, then you make your film, and you have access to these resources to make the film, and the money and it's paid for. What I got last year, their largest complaint is the wait, the bureaucracy. It's sort of the hurry up and wait kind of thing.
Sounds like universal.
And in the U.S., what they've always said is the filmmaker's biggest job is raising money, right?
Yeah. How good are you at selling yourself?
I know, and that can be a bit of a drag, but it also shows the determination people have to make films. But it's two entirely different processes, and so sometimes the films have a very different feel to them and a look to them, and that's always fascinating to me. Yeah,
because there's probably more. I hate to use the word, a little bit more libertine kind of capacity in a system where you apply and you either get the money and you can make this vision, or something where you're actually having to go out, reach, get the money, raise the money, do all those kinds of things that can be probably maybe make you more conforming to a certain ideal that you pitch to investors and stuff.
Maybe. I don't know. Some people have money. I think if you pitch the idea right, it's your vision, you can do it. And for shorts, you don't need a ton of money. And again, the production. The way you can make a film now has been democratized in a certain way, where you can make a pretty good film pretty much more cheaply
on the
than
dollar.
you used to be able to.
Oh, totally.
You used to have to, know somewhere where you could rent a film or a projector, know somebody who used it.
Somebody
right?
with a camera.
That's right.
Who do you ship how do you get film stock? You have to ship your film stock in to get it developed.
Technology's crazy, isn't it? At the screening room, for instance, I am the projectionist because all you have to do is hit play. And in the old days, being a projectionist was an incredible thing, where I was like reels and 2 films and trays and
I can attest to that.
disasters away. You had to be a trained professional, and I am not that.
It was one of the more stressful things I've ever done in my life.
I've heard that it was a difficult job.
And, depending on the place, you had multiple cameras, and a lot of people don't realize that there are these little dots that used to be in 35 millimeter films that let you know is the end of the reel, it was time to start the new reel. And so you'd get the other reel loaded up, and that's why old theaters had multiple windows in the back. Like if you look at an old theater, they had like three like windows in the back, and that's because that's how many reels they could run at one time.
Okay.
And when the bop would happen, you turn that one off and turn the other one on and hope nobody noticed.
Yeah.
I
don't do that. I
It's super stressful.
I hit play and the whole movie plays fine. Goes all the way through. There's just a difference in technology, in the creation and the experience.
So our viewers, now that they've gotten a wonderful introduction to VTIFF, they might, if any of you are interested in finding out more about VTIFF, make sure you go to the website. But I wanted to talk to you, Steve. What kind of opportunities do people have in our community to get involved with VTIFF if they're into film or are curious about being able to participate or access?
Sure, they can reach out. We have all kinds of volunteer opportunities. People can always reach out and see at the website. You can just find our email address and send it to info@vtiff.org. And we love volunteers. We need them a lot because we show a lot of movies.
Okay.
We show so many more movies than we used to because of the screening room. So volunteers are
So
great.
what does being a volunteer entail?
Well, it depends on what you do.
Okay.
There are different jobs for different things to do, from basic greeting to concessions to box office to...
Now, and I know this comes up, I hear this sometimes. If somebody becomes a volunteer for VTIFF, does that mean they get to see the screening for free?
No.
Okay.
But it does mean you get to see a screening for free. The next, you get a voucher for
You
another
get a
screening.
voucher for another
So you
screening.
get to see a free movie, but you don't get to see that movie.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
You've actually worked for the movie, so
Yeah.
it's free,
Yeah, it's relative.
in payment for your labor. Whoops, sorry. You get,
that's good to know.
Yeah.
And that might, if any of you guys want to do a little work, get into what VTIFF is doing, and then get to come see a free film, it's a great opportunity to get involved.
Yeah, I think that's a fun group of people. We always have a great time. We show our movies in the screening room, and Made Here we show them at the Lumiere building, and then we also show movies twice a month up in the big room on the 3rd floor. And we got good ones coming up in March.
Yep. In the Film House at the Main Street Lane Performing Arts Center. We've been doing that together for a while. I think you guys have been there for about 10 years. 11 years.
I believe it. Before my time.
Before your time. So any future ideas or plans for VTIFF moving forward, or anything on the horizon?
I think we want to we started the screening room just a year ago, so I think we want to hone what we're doing. I have all kinds of nebulous thoughts and plans. It seems like a very chaotic but interesting time in terms of film presentation in Chittenden County. So there's all kinds of things I can think as fantasies I'd like to do. But currently VTIFF is showing movies every week, and we're showing multiple movies every week. We'll show, by my count, if you toss in the festival, we'll show more than 200 movies this year.
That's wild.
That's a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we're doing a big thing for something with a full-time staff of 2.5.
Yeah.
It'll be 3 next week. Someone's stepping up to be full-time. That's great.
That is very exciting.
Oliver's going to be full-time.
Congratulations.
Thrilling. It's thrilling to have. But that's still a big lift for 3 people, and we love it. And so I don't know that I have any big plans beyond what we're doing.
Okay.
Trying to expand the films on the 3rd floor, the big movies. We have found since the Daily Theater, the First Run Theater went away, we're getting really kind of more quality looks at independent cinema that used to play the theater. So
First Run.
Yeah, so next month we got the Almodovar's Room Next Door and Mike Lee's Hard Truths, both great indie films. They're both going to be there that we might not have gotten before. And we had got Queer with Daniel Craig.
Which is unbelievable because that's a huge major market.
Yeah, we had a Nora play there. And so we're getting a slight upgrade. Not upgrade. That's a bad term. It's more of a popular.
The capacity to actually show more commercial films. Yeah, because of the market.
And because we're not in competition with the theater down the street. We used to show counter programming, and now that that's not there, we can do the programming. So that's been fun.
Which we are all here for, without a doubt.
That's right.
Steve, it's been a pleasure having you on the program.
It's been a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming by. I'll see you on the waterfront.
I'll be there.
And I'll see you guys right back here next month. Take care.